Your phone battery hits 1%. You feel it before you even look. A small drop in your stomach. Your thumb twitches toward a pocket that has nothing left to give you. You sit there. Just you in the room. No feed, no notification, nothing. And within 30 seconds, something in your chest starts to itch. You call this boredom, but the real answer is far stranger. Boredom is not a flaw in your personality. It is not a sign of a short attention span or a mind gone soft from screens. It is one of the oldest alarm systems your brain has ever built, and for most of human history, it may have been the difference between a species that thrived and one that starved. Think about that for a second. What is boredom actually for? Your brain runs on a simple rule: stay alive, reproduce, pass on your genes. Every feeling you have exists because it once helped an ancestor do one of those two things. Fear kept you from the cliff edge. Disgust kept you from eating something rotten. Hunger sent you looking for food. So what does boredom protect you from? Nothing external, no cliff, no predator. Boredom protects you from wasted time. Psychologist John Eastwood, who has spent decades studying this exact question at York University, describes boredom as the unpleasant feeling of wanting to engage with the world and being unable to, not the absence of stimulation, the failure to connect with it. Your brain is not asking for entertainment. It is asking for meaning. And when it can't find any, it punishes you until you go looking. That punishment is not a bug, it is a leash. Picture an early human 40,000 years ago, sitting still, doing nothing, for hours at a time, was not neutral. It was dangerous. Every unused minute was a minute not spent scanning for threats, not spent tracking prey, not spent teaching a child how to start a fire. A mind that could sit in stillness forever, content and unbothered, would have been outcompeted by a mind that couldn't stand it. The itch you feel when you're understimulated isn't modern anxiety. It's an ancient survival mechanism still firing in a world it was never designed for. Some researchers even argue that boredom evolved specifically to prevent a kind of mental tunnel vision. Philosopher Andreas Elpidero, who studies the function of unpleasant emotions, has proposed that boredom exists to pull you out of activities that have stopped being useful and push you toward ones that are. Without it, you'd get trapped. You'd keep doing the same unproductive task long after it had stopped serving you, because nothing inside you would ever say enough. Boredom is the mechanism that says enough. It is restlessness with a purpose. But here's where it gets stranger. For most of human history, people were not constantly busy. Anthropologist James Sussman, who has spent years living with and studying the Yuhuanzi people of the Kalahari, one of the last hunter-gatherer societies on Earth, found something that upends the modern myth entirely. These communities often worked far fewer hours than people in industrialized nations. Some estimates put their labor at around 15 hours a week. The rest of the time was spent resting, socializing, storytelling, and yes, sitting with nothing in particular to do. So if boredom is an ancient alarm system, why weren't they constantly ringing it? The answer isn't that they didn't get bored. It's that their boredom had somewhere to go. Idle time was filled with each other, conversation, craft, rest that felt earned, not anxious. There was no gap between stillness and connection because the people around you were always right there. Boredom in that world was a short signal quickly answered, not a chronic condition. Compare that to a modern day. A commute, a waiting room, a line at the store. Every one of these used to be filled almost automatically with a conversation, a glance at your surroundings, a wandering thought that eventually led somewhere. Now they're filled with a screen. The signal still comes, it just gets intercepted before it can send you anywhere real. It's worth asking why this shift happened so fast. For nearly all of human history, the environment around a person changed slowly, generation after generation, and boredom had time to evolve alongside it, answered by whatever the surrounding culture offered. Then, within the span of a single lifetime, the environment changed faster than any emotion could adapt to. Cities grew, screens arrived, attention itself became something companies could measure, sell, and compete for. Your ancient alarm system didn't get an update. It just got surrounded by 1,000 new ways to be silenced instead of answered. Now here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. In 2014, psychologist Timothy Wilson and his team at the University of Virginia ran an experiment that became instantly infamous. They asked people to sit alone in a room with no phone, no book, nothing to do but think for around 15 minutes. Simple enough, except many participants found it so unpleasant that, when given the option, they chose to give themselves mild electric shocks rather than sit with their own thoughts. Some had said beforehand they'd pay money to avoid being shocked. Left alone with nothing, a portion of them shocked themselves anyway, just to have something happen. Read that again. People chose pain over stillness. Wilson's team ran the experiment across multiple groups, in labs and in people's homes, with strangers and with their own personal thoughts. And the pattern held again and again. The human mind, when given true emptiness, will often manufacture discomfort rather than sit inside the discomfort it already has. That is how loud the alarm has become. Not because humans are broken, but because the world stopped giving the alarm anywhere useful to send you. Your ancestors' boredom pointed toward a task, a person, a fire that needed tending. Yours points toward a glowing rectangle that gives you motion without meaning. You get the ringing without the resolution, over and over, every single day. So is boredom actually good for you? Here's the twist almost nobody expects. Some of the most interesting research on this doesn't treat boredom as a problem to eliminate. It treats it as a doorway. Studies on incubation and creativity have found that when the mind is understimulated, it doesn't go quiet. It goes searching. Ideas that were buried under active tasks start to surface. Daydreaming, that specific flavor of mental drift that shows up right after boredom sets in, has been linked in multiple studies to increased problem-solving and original thinking. Researchers at the University of Central Lancashire once had participants complete a dull, repetitive task before a creativity test, and those who had been bored first generated more original ideas than those who hadn't. The very discomfort your brain uses to push you toward action might also be the exact condition your brain needs to generate something new. In other words, the alarm isn't just telling you to escape, it's telling you to create, but you almost never let it finish the sentence. The second that itch appears, you reach for the phone, and the signal gets cut off before it can do its actual job. You're not curing boredom when you scroll, you're muting the alarm before it can point you anywhere useful, which means the discomfort never actually resolves. It just gets interrupted over and over, thousands of times a day, until your brain forgets what resolution even feels like. Think about the last time you sat somewhere with truly nothing to do. No phone, no task, no plan. When was it? For most people today, the honest answer is unsettling. It might have been years. Not because life got busier in the way we like to complain about, but because every gap that used to hold a little empty time got filled with something engineered to fill it. Waiting rooms, elevators, the walk to your car. Micro moments that used to belong to your own wandering mind now belong to a feed designed by people whose entire job is making sure you never feel that ancient itch long enough to actually listen to it. And that might be the real cost. Not that you're bored more often, that you're bored the same amount, but you never let it speak. There's a strange irony buried in all of this. The apps built to cure your boredom are, in a very real sense, the reason it keeps coming back stronger. Every time you interrupt the alarm with a scroll, you never let your mind finish the search it was trying to run. The itch gets soothed for a moment and returns minutes later, slightly louder, slightly more demanding, because it was never actually answered. It's the same reason a habit like snacking when you're not hungry can spiral. You've trained the response without ever addressing the request underneath it. Researchers who study boredom have even given this pattern a name: boredom proneness, a tendency some people develop where the threshold for feeling that itch drops lower and lower until almost any unstimulated moment triggers it. The more that alarm gets muted before it resolves, the more sensitive it seems to become. It's a strange kind of feedback loop. The tool built to relieve the discomfort trains your brain to feel it faster and more often the next time. So here's the reframe. Boredom was never your enemy. It was a message sent by a part of your brain built long before phones, before cities, before agriculture even existed. It was built to say, this moment is empty, go make it matter. For most of human history, people answered that message with each other, with rest, with stories, with fire. You answer it with a screen that gives you the appearance of an answer and none of the substance. Imagine for a moment giving that ancient signal what it was actually asking for. Not a distraction, a direction. The next time it rings, instead of reaching for the phone, you let it sit for 10 seconds longer than usual. Just 10. In that gap, notice what your mind reaches for on its own. A memory, a person you should call, an idea you'd forgotten you had. That's the alarm doing its actual job, the one it was built for across hundreds of thousands of years before anything ever came along to interrupt it. The next time your battery hits 1% and that small drop hits your stomach, notice it. Don't reach immediately. Let it ring for a moment longer than usual. That itch isn't broken. It's ancient, it's intelligent, and it has been trying to tell you something the whole time. Your phone battery will hit 1% again tonight, but this time, maybe you let the silence answer first.